Dogs, dogs, dogs. Yes, today in JJJapan we're still talking about dogs in the Edo period, on the reign of Tokugawa Tsuneyoshi. And today, well, we're going to talk about his great idea to solve, well, the dog problem. Well, it wasn't a dog problem, dogs were gods. And how do you treat gods? Well, you treat them properly by building a palace to their magnificence. So that be the topic today in JJJapan. Oino-sama! And just before we start, I'm going to get you for a few seconds to ask for your opinion. Yes, I want your help. I'm thinking of turning this podcast, well, into more of a longer podcast. Say, like, from 20 to 40 minutes, and it's split into 3 sort of sections. As I'm doing these podcasts at the moment, they're only 10 minutes, but I can do, say, 10 minutes podcasts, like 3 times a week. I can put all that. Now I'm thinking if I put that all in one, that may make a better podcast experience for you guys. So I want to know your opinion. If you think this would be a good idea, or you think smaller, like 10-minute podcast episodes is something you prefer, please let me know either in the comments anywhere you find this or on the JJJapan Facebook page. The link is down below. Thanks for your time, and now back to the episode. Welcome back, and today we're continuing our conversation about Shori Awarimi no Re. What was this? Well, this was the great idea of Tokugawa Tsuneyoshi of protecting mainly dogs, but all life. But as he was a bit of a dictator, a bit like King Jong-un, it went a bit out of hand, and it started at dogs, and then ended up, well, encompassing all living animals. And if, well, you don't love these animals and take care of them, you could lose your life. It was quite a hard time for the people of Edo as well, being at that throughout this period from 1688 to 1709, if I get that correctly. There was actually a massive earthquake in Edo region, and as well Mount Fuji erupted. So it was a pretty hard time for the people of Japan. Plus now they couldn't eat meat, so it was pretty tough. But Shori Awarimi no Re had a great idea to solve the dog problem, because, well, dogs became gods in Edo, and the dog population, well, was about equal to 1/10 of the human population at the time. A lot of stray dogs, and being now you couldn't actually hurt any of these dogs, but you get, like, maybe killed. Dogs, well, they just multiplied, and there was even more dogs. So there was more dog gods, and it got a bit out of hand. Because it's like when you have rabbits and you can't really quell the rabbits, and they just breed, right? You give them food and they breed. So they had the great idea of, well, making, well, a palace for these dogs. Doggy Heaven. Because dogs were gods, right, at the time. They must have a place to live what's equal to their status. And they made a place called Okaikoi. This is about 90,000 square meters, equal to probably about 20 Tokyo domes of land, just to house dogs and take care of them. And if you go to Nakano, what's, I think, 3 stops from Shibuya Station, if you take the central Eastern JR line, you will arrive at the place where this palace used to be built, used to reside. And there's a little, well, statues for this, well, palace of about 5 dogs outside the city office. Well, even though it's small now, they still got their history coming on. So how many dogs could this palace, reside? And it was about, 1 million dogs. And being these dogs, they're guards now. They don't walk in. No, they get carried in specialized dog-carrying devices, similar to the ones the rich, famous, and the shogun would get carried around in, called kago. If you watched any samurai drama or anything about Edo period Japan, you probably would have seen one of these when the lord gets carried around. Yes, and now, dogs are in them. So the dogs have been carried to their newly built palace, and they get served pretty well, getting about 3 portions of rice, miso soup, they get miso, and they get fish every day. But when you think about this, you have 1 million dogs in a palace. Like, how much is this gonna cost? Well, it costs a current day about 28 oku-en, or about 28 trillion yen, what will become to about, is that $28 billion or something like that? Like a stupid amount of money just to feed these dogs each year. But who was going to pay for this? No, it wasn't going to be the shogun, it was the people. Yes, they made a new tax. The great shogun, Tsuneyoshi, he taxed this burden on the people, because they must show their love, and they must show it through taxes. I was just reading up on this, and it's like, is this for real? Like, did they really just go all out? And they did. Like, when you think about how much this kept on throughout the whole period of Tokugawa Tsuneyoshi, and this was a pretty hard time in Japan, like I said. Like, Tokyo basically, not Tokyo, Edo basically got destroyed twice. And worse by an earthquake, and then we had Mount Fuji eruption. And they kept up with this dog worship as gods. It's pretty crazy, really. Like, they put basically dogs, and especially dogs, really, above the basic human population. And there was no real big civil unrest about this. Why? It shows that actual peace was total domination of the shogun. The shogun was in total dictatorial control. Like, you couldn't really do anything against this, and you had no real power as a citizen to go against this. Why? Because the shogun, though he seems a bit crazy, they were the smartest and some of the most intellectuals of the time, because they're the only ones really getting, especially the Tokugawa family and the people in the inner circles, getting the really high education. So they knew what they were doing. They knew how to control the people. And yes, they were a bit mental and wanted to put dogs over, the basic human population of Edo, the poor Japanese people, who went for a pretty hard time. They had the power, the smarts, and the money to do it. And we've been in a very, very interesting, silly time in the Japanese period. What we should not call Edo Jidai, we should be called Inu Jidai. And now we're going to end there on a talk about, Doggy Heaven. So would you want to live in Okakoe? It's a pretty tough time in the Edo period, of this sort of period, right? Earthquakes, volcanoes, sort of time, you wish you were a dog. So as always, we're going to end here with a thanks for listening. And if you like this podcast, let me know. I'm going to change some things up, try some new styles, so your opinion matters now. And if you listen to this podcast, have any comments, please leave comments down below anywhere you find this, or on the Facebook page JJJapan. See you around. 最後まで見てくれて本当にありがとうございました。じゃあね。犬時代。